What's up, y'all? This is Jason Alon Butler.
This is Steven Harrison.
This is Eric and Proda.
This is Fever 333, and you're watching Shout Loud TV. You heard?
Hello everybody, it's Alex from Shout Loud TV, and I'm happy to sit here with the Fever 333. How's it going, guys?
Good.
Good.
Three goods.
First things first, why is there a fever coming, and who should be scared?
It's coming because it's been necessary for years, at least for as long as we've been observing. We feel as though there's an idea of power that's slowly being leveraged towards people that don't really necessarily even need it in a small percentage of various societies globally. And who should be scared is probably the people that are trying to take advantage and take the power away from the people.
That was a very short and nice definition. Thank you.
There you go.
So how was this group founded? Obviously, Litlive split up last year, and then we have Steve from the Chariot, and you're from Night Versus, still playing in Night Versus, right? Yeah, just released the instrumental album, I believe. So, yeah. So how did this project come to be?
I was, like you said, it was kind of I was at the end of Let Live personally, and I was working like 2 jobs at home because I was having a kid, and I was at one of my jobs, which is selling vegan cookies at Erewhon, and Travis Barker approached me, and he had known me because my other band and his goddaughter had shown him videos of me and my other band, and he found out that we had a mutual friend, which is John Feldman, and he was saying that we should get together and write some music, and I was saying, sounds good, Travis Barker. And we ended up getting together one night and discussing what we wanted to see in art and what we wanted to hear in music and what we wanted from people generally, just as far as alternative thinking. And we got together and we wrote We're Coming In, and from that moment we just started writing, and it was very easy to write. And when it was time to put together a band, these 2 were the first people I thought of. They were respectively my favorite members of their bands, 2 people that, as far as performance and musicianship and ideologically, mentally, emotionally, just people that I connected with. Steven and I had talked for years about doing music together, and Eric and I were already doing music together with, I had a solo project that I was doing, and also with some Let Live stuff. So that was it was kind of inevitable that the 3 of us got together, really. And thanks to John and Travis, we were able to kind of spark this whole thing.
Yeah, nice. So now that we've talked about the term fever, let's talk about the 3 threes then. You said there's a certain definition, at least that's what you've posted online. Maybe you can elaborate on the meaning of the...
Yeah, so C is the 3rd letter of the English alphabet. So the 3s in our name are the 3 C's, which represent community, charity, and change. And essentially, it's just, again, it's the foundation upon which this whole project rests. We want to make sure that we honor community, the communities that we visit, the culture that we get to share when traveling and putting on these demonstrations. The charity, we have a charity contingent, the Walking My Shoes Foundation, as well as every demonstration we perform. We have a $3.33 ticket add-on to a local charity. Again, that feeds back into the idea of community. It's saying thank you and honoring the communities that are affording us the privilege to play in said community. And the change itself, I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. We just want to represent the change that people want to see in themselves, as well as their communities, as well as their government. And we want to hopefully catalyze that desire for change that I think exists in many, many people. I think everybody has something that they would like to see change. And we really sort of bank on the fact that we think that most humans want more good than we want bad. So.
Yeah, right. You've just mentioned it. So other bands aspire fame, for example, just to be famous and gain a broader audience to achieve just that. But you seem quite opposed to this. What is your mission as a band, so to speak?
We just want to speak to as many people as possible. And I think that we want to make sure that we offer representation and empowerment rather than, trying to get dollars and cents. I think that, we live in a Western world. It's not lost on us. We understand how this thing works. We understand how we got here. We understand we had to put gas in this bus to get here, and we need money to be in this thing, this vehicle, like whatever. We get that. It's a Western world, and capitalism is certainly a pillar that most of this runs on. But there are flaws. There are things that are wrong and that could be better and that could help people in a much better fashion. And there's so much money that is being made by so many other people. I'm sorry, so many other, let's say, corporatized elements, different distribution. The distribution of wealth is so, I would say, I guess, imbalanced.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if we're going to talk about that and fame, fame is not, it's not about money. Fame is not even a thing for us. We don't really care to be famous as a project. We just want to speak to as many people as possible. If whatever the byproduct is, we're not going to, if people want to pay to buy a t-shirt, like that's cool too. But we just want to say something. I'm going to let these guys talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, personally, like in my last band, I sort of, I didn't really have the opportunity to sort of feel like I was speaking about things that directly affected my life on like a day-to-day basis. I love that band, and I love Josh, our old singer. I love the message he had, but it was very much like a personal thing for him. So being a part of this band really has kind of opened my eyes to like a different purpose. And being older too, like that band broke up years ago. I was really young when I was in that band, and it's sort of just kind of like, it's cool to be a part of something that allows me to represent like minorities and aggressive music, like being black, and this kind of like heavy music thing is really important, especially in 2018. It's just like people need to see that it's cool to be able to do things beyond what your friends and family think you should be doing, and especially just with the political side of all of this, man. It's like that just wasn't a part of my last band, and now being 28, it's like there's not a day that goes by that's not a part of my life, and something that I don't think about. So fame is like, that's nothing to me or either one of these guys. And as far as money's concerned, it's like he was saying, it's just like, that's just kind of the world we live in. Like, you need it to keep the ball rolling, but at the same time, it's like we're all at points in our lives where we can give back. We're very blessed as individuals, and it's nice to be able to like visit different places and play alone, and like not just give money but give our time. Because after we play, we stick around the venue until they kick us all out, and we speak to everybody who wants to talk, whether that's just a what's up or you have questions about lyrics, anything like that. So we get a lot back, man. Like, it's like we're learning a lot about the places that we visit, and different walks of life, things like that. And it's just like it's a really cool kind of different thing. So like fame and money, it's like I get the appeal, but I think with this band, it's like we're not concerned with those things at all.
Yeah, I mean,
anything to add?
No, I mean, they pretty much said everything. I think the only other thing that just in general that's been an overall goal the entire time is creating this safe space for people to enjoy themselves and have these conversations, but not feel threatened by anybody that's opposing their views or just having different views. And like Steven was saying, just it being a learning experience. I mean, for all of us, we've done all of the things that we wanted to in the realm of our previous bands, and I'm still doing it with Night Verses, but this is also an opportunity for us, like Jason was saying, to see how effective we can be to reach the largest group of people. Because if you're trying to create a safe space, the more people you can have in that space, the better you're going to leave that world, or at least for that day, that moment, that night, whatever. So it's also been a learning experience, not only in meeting people, but finding what are the most effective ways to communicate to those audiences.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question. So you refer to your concerts as demonstrations, and you have taken part in, I think, protest marches. Can you tell me a bit about that and what that's been like for you as a band?
I mean, essentially, it's just, again, it is that demonstration, the example of freedom and liberated thought and essence that we're just trying to really, really promote and encourage when we perform, when we have these demonstrations. So we're the only band performing, and before you walk in, we want everything to be experiential. Like, make no mistake, we're still artists as well, and we love the idea of a vibe, and we love the idea of essence, and we love this sort of enveloped feeling once you step into a Fever demonstration that you've stepped into somewhere that is aberrant to just outside the door, or perhaps the way that you were feeling in your community, or perhaps the way you feel in this country, or perhaps the way you feel in this world. We're trying to create a space for you to really express yourself and represent yourself the way that you want to be represented. And we want to offer representation and as well. That's this group is a spectrum of people, as well as ideas and backgrounds and thoughts. So with these demonstrations, it's very much that we're just trying to demonstrate an idea of freedom, not just the cliched, I guess, wave of like nationalistic waving flag for freedom, but real thought, like freedom and thought, freedom and expression. And as far as our involvement with anything protest wise, again, that Eric said, it's a place for you to not feel threatened. And we're not out here necessarily. The biggest threat is when people try to silence your opinion or agency. That is a threat. But what we don't encourage necessarily threatening. We encourage the truth. We encourage honesty and transparency. And when there is something that opposes another group and it's damaging to them, that's fact. That's not an opinion. When we have an example was our government trying to basically take the land, some of the last standing land we had from our indigenous people in America. That's damaging to their culture. That eradicates the culture. That's how you get rid of culture. I mean, you guys in Germany know about the attempt to completely eradicate culture, and
obviously,
you're right. So we experienced that throughout. In America, but also throughout the world, and understanding that is damaging to a people. So again, those are the biggest threats. It's not necessarily the ideas that I guess we can believe that we're weaponizing thoughts, but it's the actions that people are taking against others that we are out here protesting. We want to make sure that people are not feeling like they're being crushed by institutions or systems.
So, since we're just talking about different opinions, how do you deal with people that have a very different opinion from yours? How would you approach that person if they, for example, insult you? What do you think is the right way to deal with that?
I just ask them what they think I'm saying. Like, what do they think I mean when I say these things? And then typically, what I've experienced is those people, they've misunderstood me, misread me, or they've assumed things about my agency, my stance, or my ideals on things that are incorrect. Usually that's how it is. So I usually approach them with, well, what do you think I'm saying when I say X, Y, Z? And then I try to see where they're coming from and why they seem so offended, why they feel the need to insult my agency, and if they're justified. Because honestly, if someone was justified in why they were talking shit to me, I'd be like, oh yeah, I guess I didn't think about that. But typically, we operate on facts and statistics. This is it's not biases, and we're trying to, while including and honoring the emotional element of all of these issues, which we do in our demonstrations, which we do in our music, which we do at all times, we also understand that there's a very objective part of this, and that's kind of what we operate off is the objectivity of all of these scenarios. So when someone wants to insult us, or me personally, I literally just say, well, what do you think I mean? What do you think I meant when I said that? I mean, maybe there's other ways to deal with it, but that's what I do.
I like your view on this.
Well, Jason also is very forward in how he believes right off the bat. So I think that approach is like super effective in that scenario, because I feel like you're the one that people are going to come up to most to feel like you're opposing them, whether they're right or not. I honestly just like to ask questions about things that I might not understand why somebody would support. And I genuinely mean that. Like stuff that I'm, assuming maybe there's something I don't understand about it. And usually pretty quickly with their answer, you can figure out if they have a real source of information, if they've actually applied it to their personal experience or, the experience of people around them, or if they're just literally mimicking something somebody else said that they agree with another issue. And in general, that's just been most effective for me because I get to kind of like, not that I'm hiding, but you get to kind of go under the radar and get a very straightforward answer, and you find out pretty quick whether or not you feel like they're coming from a credible place. So yeah, I mean, that's what I've done for the most part. But then again, like this band is pretty obvious on what we stand for. So I think it's fairly obvious where we're coming from when we talk to people.
Yeah, all right. Let's talk about the music then. You just had several announcements. You're playing Rock am Ring and Rock am Park. Are you looking forward to that, first of all?
Yeah, that'd be ill. That's like one of the craziest in the world, right? As far as like rock is concerned.
Yeah, we've all, like me and my friends have been there for the past 3 or 4 years, so it's a really great festival, definitely.
Sick.
So
yeah, that should be cool. Yeah, we're stoked.
Should be nice. And you also announced your new album. So can you tell me something about that and what the content is, what the record is about in general?
Yeah, I mean, it's really just extrapolating on what we've been discussing prior with our other music and broadcasts and messaging. But essentially, it's just really a collection, a body of work to offer representation and to offer new ideas to people that may feel stuck where they are or may feel underrepresented or feel that there just hasn't been a place for them to place those frustrations, those beliefs, and those desires and hopes. We created this album as a pretty expansive collection sonically and, again, ideologically in order to offer that sort of spectrum of hope or desire from people. And also sonically, like musically, like I said, we really tried to tastefully honor all the things that we enjoy as musicians and music listeners and music fans, and create something that makes it easy to digest our next moves as a band, because we don't really want to be confined by an idea, a genre, a single sound. And instead of genre sampling, we're really cognizant of the fact that you have to tastefully try to integrate these types of music. People call it crossover, this, that, or the other. We just want to call it music. And if we're able to represent it in a way and perform it in a way that speaks to various people and it's believable and authentic, because we come from these backgrounds. We're not just like, we didn't just hear a rap song last year and on the Billboard Hot 100 and say, I want to make a song like that. We've been listening to hip hop, rap music, electronic music, trip hop, house, dark house, goth, punk, rock, like no lie, like we,
no limits.
We just been listening to this stuff our whole lives. So it was inevitable to create the body of work that we did, but I think we did it in a way that, I think it's quite tasteful. And so
I have to agree. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Right. And then next up, your band started at, I think, Randy's Donut Shop in Inglewood, California? So your home turf, so to speak. What gave you the idea to have like a pop-up store in the back of a truck and then play in a parking lot?
Gentrification. We were observing people being pushed out of their area. We were observing culture being grabbed from them and sort of mutated into this thing again for in a corporate effort in a way that was really unfair to residents that had rooted themselves, spent their time in an area creating culture, creating community, and being forced to be a part of that community that was very downtrodden, that was very underserved for so many years, for decades. And then all of a sudden, people wanted to make housing and businesses and various other things to make more money, and now they're displacing humans. So that area specifically that area was chosen in order to show people that you don't need to be afraid, and also you don't need to adhere to these rules and constructs that society may put on you, or that perhaps legally you may feel that you must do. and policies that are put in place that may actually affect you negatively, you can speak out against those things, and you can create a space to where you operate in a way that you think is appropriate. And that's what we did that day. We went to Inglewood in a box truck, told people to show up if they want to change. There was no music out. There was nothing yet. They knew nothing. We started this project on the foundation of, if you want change, if you want to be a part of change, if you want to see change in your area, then join us. And people did. I mean, we had like nearly a couple hundred people in this parking lot gathered together to discuss change with no knowledge of what this project was at all. There was no idea there was even a band, and people showed up. And that to me is the most incredible way to begin any sort of, I guess, progressive effort, is to just talk
Grassroots.
about just talk
really
about
grassroots.
progress. You know what I mean? Like, if that's what you're leading with and people show up, I mean, that's a pretty strong investment, I would say.
It's also a good sign that there's something you can build on, definitely.
Totally.
Yeah, so how do you feel then that you've been given the chance to support Bermuda Horizon and get this bigger audience to play for nowadays?
We feel pretty lucky. So Steve and I toured with Bring Me over the years, right?
Yeah.
And we've seen a complete change in like how many people come to their shows, them as a band, them as people, them as artists. So, like we said earlier, we just want to spread this message. We want to speak to as many people as possible and align ourselves with crowds that may or may not even know who we are. A lot of them don't here. They may or may not believe in what we believe in, but I think the overall idea of freedom and moving this conversation forward does appeal to a lot more people than most artists have believed in the more recent past. I think we've been I think there's like been this fear of, don't say too much onto one side, don't ostracize people, and it keeps you from speaking your truth. Right. So we're lucky to be able to speak our truth on this tour, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and since this has been your first proper tour in Europe so far, how do you think that European audiences react to this U.S. American message that is like just adheres to the state of society in the United States? How do you think people in Germany, for example, perceive the message?
Well, one thing I've noticed is that they know a lot about what's going on in America, and I feel like that's great, considering like for our set, like our intro to the set is pretty confronting, and if you have a knowledge about what's going on and what's been going on, then it's not that shocking, But for people who don't know, after shows, like even in these huge rooms, we try to make ourselves available to talk to whoever, and people will ask us about the intro, and they're interested, and I think that's cool. I think that they're receiving it well. I mean, it's like a pretty young audience for the most part. I just think their minds are open. They just like back home, people want change. I mean, unfortunately right now, like what happens in the States sort of gets mimicked in other places, and this isn't, any different, so people over here want change in the same way. And I think if they can watch this band that they've never heard of and have a good time, and also sort of feel a hint of like, like this band stands for something that I'm interested in, then it's cool, and they're vocal about it, like we're out there, we talk to them, and they ask us all the questions, and it's cool to see like faces light up, and just to see interest kind of take over. So yeah, they're taking it in, and they're interested, and it's cool.
Yeah, great. So if you think about the line, sometimes you have to burn it down just to build it up again. How do you think that that translates in terms of society and your audience? What do you think people should do, and what does the average Fever listener should he be encouraged to do?
Yeah, I think ultimately that line is just explaining that if there's a problem that you perceive, you have to eradicate it. You have to omit it from your environment. I mean, quite literally, sometimes you have to completely erase old traditions and ideas in order to move forward and be progressive, in order to survive. This is evolution. Like, this can be evolution of like humanity, all the way from like a genetic, structural background to a societal structural background, systemic structural background. Like, you can't be afraid to advance yourself, and you can't be afraid to label things as archaic or antiquated or old or broken or not applicable anymore. You can't be afraid to do that, because otherwise you're just going to be stuck in old ways, especially as we evolve as a people. We're seeing it right now. So many people, our spectrum of, whether it be sexuality, whether it be intellect, whether it be various agencies politically, our spectrums are just widening. And people they have all these names and labels, calling people snowflakes or ultra liberal, or they want
libtards is one of the worst.
Or like as if we're careening towards chaos, which we're not. We're just evolving, and we've been evolving, and we will continue to evolve. And in doing so, we must understand that there are such a huge multidimensionality to the human existence, and that's how we've been able to survive. And if we keep disbanding our tribes, if we keep dividing, that's actually going to be the division that eliminates our people. It's not these ideas, these progressive ideas. It's not the liberal thought necessarily that people are thinking that we're trying to destroy one liberty in order to get another. It's not that at all. That's the thing about liberal thought. A lot of people aren't asking necessarily to throw away the things that you necessarily believe in, but more so accept that there are other ways to operate and think. And then, like, go full circle, just like we said earlier. If this is something that is encroaching and even worse, if it's extinguishing one person's way of living that is damaging to them, then that needs to go. It's just what it is. Tradition, like I said, ideas, policies, laws, some of those things just don't work in the modern age. And it's okay. Don't be afraid to say that, and don't be afraid to remove those things if you want to see change.
So let's just finish up this aspect by me asking you about the song Trigger and what your opinions on gun regulation laws are.
Absolutely. That's a great one. That's a good one, because that one really sparks a lot of
controversy.
Yeah, especially in the U.S. So for me, this is a perfect example. So I am an advocate for gun control reform, for regulatory laws, for understanding a new way to address the acquisition of firearms, offering funding to the CDC, who has been completely lobbied against the Center for Disease Control. So it's where they can observe with facts and science the effects that guns are having on our country, and these mass shootings that we're seeing with a higher frequency than anyone in the world. I don't care how you cut it. We are, like, as far as like a Western, society, we are like leading the fucking charge in mass shootings. I'm seriously just saying reform, the word reform. I'm not saying throw all your guns away, put them in a fire, never, like, I understand that, like, pragmatically, and like that's not rational to ask right now. I understand that. So I'm asking for people to quite literally just look at the 17 bodies that were laid to rest at Parkland, the 12 in Texas, the bar that just got shot up in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Look at the mental health of our nation, and understand that there are a lot of people that should not be able to acquire firearms and the caliber of firearm that they are getting. And there should be checks, there should be follow-ups, there should be much less accessibility to these high power firearms. there needs to be just new regulation because people are fucking dying. Like, people are dying. It's like in the streets, they're dying. And I'm from gun culture. Like, my father had a gun. My friends still have guns. I'm from the hood. Like, I get it. Like, I get it. People feel unsafe. They feel they need to protect. But educating people on the result of a gunshot wound, and also educating people and empowering people to know that their life is worth more, and to take 17 is not going to better. There's so many different approaches, but gun reform is what I'm saying. I'm not saying throw away your guns, eradicate the Second Amendment, like whatever. I get it. I get how we got here. Dissent. We rebelled, we fought, and we became the country we are. I get it, man. But also, there's a narrative that is being given that is also, in a lot of ways, falsified in the American narrative as to like what guns meant to us in the revolution and what they mean to us today.
Yeah.
So, again, it's just about reform. I think that anybody would say that. Well, I would hope that anybody or most people would say that kids being shot in school because a kid was able to cross a state line and buy a gun, or was able to get into his father or mother's cupboard where there was a high-powered, firearm. There needs to be some sort of reform there. There has to be some sort of change because people are still dying of the same cause. And we need to stop lobbying against, politically, we need to stop holding hands with corporations, which is why the NRA is lobbying against the CDC in order to study the effects of guns and the frequency of these acts, these shootings. We can't even give facts anymore because we're being literally held down. Like, that's another fact. This isn't just me making it up. They're lobbying against us researching gun violence in one of the most frequently gun violent countries on earth. That's fucking backwards.
Yep. Sorry to cut this short, but we kind of have to get going now. So my last question would be, what's on the agenda for the Fever next year? What are your plans, tour plans, and that's everything.
Let these motherfuckers know.
Just look.
The Fever come.
Okay. That's what it is, man. Hella shows. You know what I'm saying? New album, touring on, a bunch of new songs, and just doing what we've been doing this past year, just really trying to, just spread the message, make people feel safe, and just, expand minds, get people with different backgrounds, different beliefs in the same room cordially, and like talk about it, talk to us about it, talk to each other about it. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. I know how it gets at school, at work, it gets crazy. Comment section gets crazy. You don't need to be like that, you know what I'm saying? Come to a show and talk to your homie, talk to your neighbor, talk to us, have a good time, jump around, you know what I'm saying? And let's walk away refreshed, ready to change the community. That's what it is, man. That's 2019 on till forever. You feel?
That was the Fever 333. Thank you very much for hanging out.
Thanks, bro.
And see you soon. Have a nice evening. Bye.